Hello everyone and welcome to Clash from the penultimate round of this year's SuperUnited Rapid Tournament in Croatia. It is little Anand versus big Anand, and it's quite the game. Anand, if you didn't know, is more than 3 times Gukash's age. Gukash is 17, Anand is 53, so that is absolutely incredible that Anand can still play with these youngsters, and especially at such speed. But for those of you who remember, they did call Anand the Lightning Kid. When he was younger, he was the absolute fastest player alive. The way players play Bullet today online, that's how fast Anand was on actual over the board chess, if you didn't know. So that being said, let's check it out, and then we are going to discuss the standings and what happened in the tournament. I was watching all of the games, and I really couldn't decide which one to show. And as the final 2 rounds weren't well, not much was happening on the top boards, I decided to show you this game, even though Anand was still in contention for first place. But that being said, let's check it out. So Gukash goes pawn to e4 and Anand plays pawn to c6. He goes for the Caro-Kann defense as he did against Magnus, and it didn't really go his way. But okay, it was against Magnus. He's not gonna abandon an entire opening just for that. We have d4, d5, and here Magnus continued with that exchange variation with bishop to d3, but Gukash plays pawn to f3. He goes for the fantasy variation, and as much as I try, I was never able to figure out why this is called the fantasy variation. Maybe it's like you're out of your mind and you'd be living in a fantasy if you think it's actually okay to play f3 here. Might be something like that, but I don't know. If any of you guys can figure out an answer to this, I would be very happy if you shared it in the comments for myself and everyone else to learn. But okay, we have pawn to e6, this is the standard reply, knight to c3, we have knight to d7, and now bishop to e3. We have bishop to b4, already only a handful of games in the database with this position, bishop to d3, and now pawn to c5. We have e captures on d5, e captures and d captures on c5. And now there is a game where knight g to f6 was played, but here we have the simple bishop captures on c3, and it is now as of move 8 that we have a completely new game. So okay, Gukash captures, now he has tripled pawns, but okay, of course you will give at least one of those back, so it's not really relevant. But you have to play like this if you are to play for the win against the Caro-Kann. Knight to e7, and especially with this fantasy variation, knight to e2, we have castles by both of them, and now queen to c7, ready to start collecting on the c file. We have pawn to a4, now preparing pawn to a5 and pawn to a6 probably at some point. Knight captures on c5, grabbing one of the pawns back, and pawn to a5. We have rook to d8, and now bishop to f4, putting pressure on the queen here, queen to d7, and now queen to d2. The c3 pawn is now nicely defended, the rooks are connected, and you have to figure out where this rook is going. Obviously, it's not very useful on this file, probably to e1 or d1, or maybe even b1, all depends on what Anand plays. So here, knight captures on d3. It's not, I mean, we always say to take is a mistake, or you shouldn't capture something just for the sake of capturing something. But it's hard for Anand to develop. Your rook is still undefended. The rooks are not connected, so you can't play b6 to play something like bishop to b7. You can't develop your bishop, and well, you're just not in control of that much space. So Anand decides to capture on d3. This undoubles Gukash's pawns, and now goes knight to c6. Now he will move the queen, play f6, queen to f7, and then get the bishop into the game, and that's how he will connect his rooks. And okay, knight to g3, we have f6, and now rook f to e1. This is an open file, so the rook will be much more useful than on this file. Queen to f7, and now queen to f2. We have bishop to e6, and now bishop to e3. Putting pressure on that a7 pawn, so you have to be careful how you develop. Queen back to d7, and now knight to e2. Now Gukash said, all right, the bishop here has been weakened by playing f6. Now we're going to bring our knight over to f4 to put pressure on the center end on that bishop. So bishop to f5 attacks the d3 pawn, and interestingly, Gukash still plays knight to f4. And now, what's the idea behind this? Can g5 be played? You just kick away the knight and pick up the d3 pawn. It could. It can very well be played. The problem is now, once the knight moves, and of course you could play something like knight to h5, then you pressure this pawn. But even if you don't go for this, even if you play something like knight to e2 and you capture the pawn, this looks like too much weakening of the position just for the price of 1 pawn. But probably knight to h5 would be played, then you have to defend, then g4 is played, and okay, it's a very much a double-edged game. But it's not a mistake or anything. Anand decides to go for queen to f7 instead, and now pawn to h4. Now the pawn is coming to h5, the knight nicely defends it, and of course you already stopped the pawn to g5. So pawn to h6, pawn to h5, and now knight to e5, putting more pressure on the d3 pawn, and Anand Gukesh just defends it, rook e to d1. It's always hard to decide whether to play rook a to d1 or rook e to d1. I feel like even in 2023, even the engines still have no idea which rook belongs to the crucial square, because I think the answer lies somewhere far away where the computer still cannot decide, and a human would actually decide on this better. But who knows? Rook e to d1, we have knight back to c6, and now rook d to b1. Now going after that b7 pawn, rook to d7, adding more defense here, and now rook to b5. Okay, you are putting some pressure on this pawn, but really you are threatening c4 as the bishop on f5 is undefended. So here a6, trying to chase the rook back, rook to c5, and now rook to e8. We have pawn to c4. This can now be played as the bishop on f5 is undefended, and Anand plays pawn to d4. Now here you could just decide to trade everything. Well, let's say knight to e5, you put pressure on the d3 pawn, let's say d4, now knight comes here, attacks the rook and the queen, knight captures on d3, bishop captures, c captures on d5, and now rook captures on d5, and okay, everything gets traded off. Not a bad position, probably even Anand is better. But he decides to play d4 right away, and okay, now it would be too dangerous because this would create too strong of a pass pawn. So bishop back to d2, and now rook to e5. Countering the rook on c5, rook to d5, and now rook e captures on d5, c captures on d5, and now the idea is, of course, what if Anand plays rook captures on d5? Well, that's exactly what you should do. You should give up this exchange. Probably you will win the d3 pawn as well, and you will definitely have compensation. However, after c captures on d5, knight to e7 was played, and now comes pawn to g4. And all of a sudden, Anand's pieces are running out of squares. This bishop now only has the h7 square, so that's exactly what Anand plays. And now, not queen captures on d4, the move you are probably all looking at, rook to c1. The idea being, of course, that now if knight captures on d5, then rook to c8 check, and Anand resigns. There's no way to save the king as the bishop is on h7. You can just start giving up pieces, and that's it. So instead, after g5, after this rook to c1 move, g5 is played, but now h captures on g6. Here, instead of g5, a stubborn defense was very much needed, something like king to h8, but then okay, you have this, you can put the king on h7, but Anand decided for pawn to g5, and this is giving Gukesh a bit too much. He plays h captures on g6 en passant, bishop captures, and now queen to h4, putting pressure on the h6 pawn. Pawn to h5, even king to h7 still might be a little bit better, but still it's a very bad for Anand. h5 was played, g captures on h5, and now pawn to bishop to f5, opening up the g file, but it's opening it for white, as you can see. King to f2, now the rook can also come to g1, now knight captures on d5. Okay, king to h7 still maybe a little bit better, but white is still winning. Knight captures on d5 was played. Now comes rook to c8 with check, king to h7, and now there is only one winning move for Gukesh, but not that difficult to spot, so feel free to pause the video and win the game for Gukesh while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on finding this weird idea. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it is knight to g6. This is what Gukesh played, and it was in this position on move 40 that Anand resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. They even had plenty of time. I think they had like 6 minutes and 4 minutes, but there's no reason to continue this. and of course Anand knows it. Rook to h8 is coming, and even if you stop this, let's say, okay, you can capture, but then it's a double check. You would have to capture here, and then rook to h8, and there's no defense. Like queen to h5 is coming, queen to h6. This is game over. And if you try something else, instead of bishop captures and g6, you could try moving the king. But now look at this beauty. Knight to e5. Forks the queen and the rook, and that's pretty much it. You either resign here or you take the knight, and then queen g5, as the pawn is now gone from defending the g5 square, king h7, and then queen to h6 will be checkmate, as I'm sure you have forgotten about our good friend the bishop on d2 guarding the h6 square. So those are only some of the reasons why Anand resigned. But yeah, 40 moves, beautiful win by Gukesh over Anand. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and this is what happened in the final rounds. Even though Magnus had a really bad second day, he had a pretty great last day, and he almost caught up the leaders, Fabiano Caruana and Jan Nepomniachtchi, who took a shared lead after 3 days, or rather after 9 rounds of the Rapid tournament in Zagreb. Magnus played the last game against Lupulescu, Constantin, who really did not have a great tournament, and he even played a terrible, terrible line of the King's Indian defense, well, he gave Constantin everything that he could dream of, but it just wasn't enough. At some point he equalized and then just pushed for a win, as he was much, much better on time. And Fabi and Nepo both won their first game, or rather they won their round 7 game, and then just drew the remainder of the games to retain first place. So there we have it. Fabi and Nepo leading the Rapids. Of course, it will be continued through the Blitz. Tomorrow we have 2 days of Blitz, and then the points will be accumulated. Magnus in third with 11, then Anand and Gukesh both with 10. Had Anand won this game instead of lost, he would also be on 12, but what are you going to do? Gukesh tricked him. Alireza and Duda and Rapport on 9, Saric on 6, also definitely not his tournament. He can do much better than this, and Constantin Lupulescu with 2 points in last place. So yeah, that's this short coverage of the SuperUnited Rapid tournament in Croatia. Like I said, we're continuing with 2 days of Blitz, so stay tuned for that. I'm probably going to cover two or more games per day, but who knows? I might cover less, I might cover more. You know, you can never really tell with these things. So yeah, once again, really hope you enjoyed it. Very nicely done by Gukesh. Anand had his chances here, but Gukesh just punished his g5 breakthrough here. Like I said, here king to h8, and the game still goes on. But you know, it's always hard to decide to go for a stubborn defense. This looks more active, so you just play it and hope for the best. That's what Anand did, and that's what led to his downfall. So yeah, once again, really hope you enjoyed it. I would like to thank James Eugene Cashman, John Austin, Not Complace, Paul Miller, and Brad Roth for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot, I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing the coverage of this wonderful tournament only in the Blitz section, checking up on your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. So thank you all, I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.